So, Mr. Tommy Oliver, tell me what's on your mind.
A lot. Too much, really. And that's kind of the problem.
Well, why don't you start from the beginning?
It's funny, really. Being in the analysis subsection of the community for so long, I've seen a lot of people come and go, bring lots of new ideas and interesting personalities to the table. However, one thing that seems to have been pretty constant among the majority of the people throwing their hat in the proverbial ring here, at least the ones doing so seriously, is that they all love being critics. They love the idea of breaking down media, reviewing things, picking them apart, and sharing their opinions about it with the world. In short, they're here pursuing their passion. I've never really been able to say the same thing about myself, and that fact is starting to take its toll on me. It's leaving me rather conflicted.
Might I ask how long you've been feeling this way? I would think that you must have started making videos on YouTube because you felt passionate about what you were saying. Can you think of when that started to change?
That's kind of the thing. This was never something I really envisioned myself doing. I fell into making videos completely by accident. I'm a storyteller at heart, and I've said that a lot. Before I started my YouTube channel, I was working on making comics and other illustrated narratives for the fandom. I'd just finished my first big project, Sister Hoof Slighted, a 70-page picture book all about Scootaloo and Rainbow Dash, and was working on my comic all about Trixie. That was what I always envisioned myself doing. I figured I'd make a name for myself as the next big storyteller in the pony community or something like that. My primary passion was always in that kind of work. But I was no stranger to breaking down narrative content either. I'd been doing it subconsciously for years with essentially every piece of media I ever exposed myself to, in an attempt to try and figure out what I liked and what I didn't like, so I could make my stories that much better. My friend Paleo, who was one of the first to make videos, would talk with me about stuff like that all the time. We chat a lot about MLP over Skype, going over what worked and what didn't. While working on my stories, I, of course, was examining the show just like anything else. And one time, we got to talking about Applejack's character, and I went on this lengthy rant about why I felt she was a background pony to so many, and how I'd fix it. When I was done, he said I should make a video about the concept. I was hesitant, but he eventually convinced me. So I did. Terribly. In Flash, with no gear or knowledge of what I was doing. I made the video under the impression that Paleo and some of his friends would see it, and that would be it. That video now has over 100,000 views. As time went on, I started to gain an audience, and I made a few more videos for fun in between drawing and writing. Before I'd realized it, I suddenly had 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 people who wanted to listen, and the constant influx of criticism for my work, combined with my fans cheering me on, brought me deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. When I lost my job last year, I turned to Patreon, at that time a brand new website, to function as a stopgap of sorts while I found a new place to work. A few months later, I was making more money on Patreon than I did at my old job, and suddenly, I didn't even need a regular gig to pay down my admittedly menial bills. At this point, I was elated, but at the same time, I was locked in. This was what I did. This is what I was known for, and now, was being paid for to do. It's not like I don't enjoy making videos, or breaking down media. I feel I'm pretty decent at it. But this exercise has always been just that. An exercise. A way to help me get better and accomplish my real goal, getting paid to write stories, not critique them. With the amount of viewers I have now and, I'll admit, the attention that comes with it, I don't want to let them down and just up and quit. Even that would be hard to do now that there's money in the mix. It's just that now, something my heart isn't 100% set on is the biggest, most time-consuming thing I do with my life, and there are times when it gets really grating. I don't identify as a critic. I honestly don't even see a whole lot of merit in the art of critiquing in general, at least not in the public space. I respect crafting a story far more than criticizing it. I'm just struggling to try and find a balance between the two, which is difficult when writing scripts, editing footage, keeping up with YouTube's constant UI refreshes and content ID crap, and making sure new content comes out consistently that grows my audience is a huge time suck and a drain on my creative energy all by itself. Basically, what was supposed to be a small side project has spiraled out of control in ways I never would have predicted.
A rather difficult situation, I must admit. You're worried about doing something that you're losing the passion to keep up on. You're worried about spending less and less time becoming the writer you've always wanted to be. You're worried about disappointing all those who have encouraged and supported you over this past year. And most of all, you're worried about not really having a choice in the matter that won't involve losing something precious along the way. I suppose I could talk about how much your efforts mean to your audience, but that likely won't be enough to help you find passion for making videos again. I suppose I could talk about finding the drive to improve upon your writing and your videos, despite whichever one becomes the more popular driving force in your life. But I can already tell that trying to keep that up is becoming a mental and perhaps even an emotional drain on you. I think you need to find a different goal somewhere down the line. Not giving up on your writing or even your videos, but rather discovering a new reason to keep up your drive. And this will not come easily. Parts of what you have been explaining to me almost sound like what a lot of people go through, although it tends to come more often during a midlife crisis. The feeling that the only way to keep going is by sticking with a job that is beginning to suck all the color out of their lives, and even surrounded by others who don't show near enough appreciation to make such efforts worthwhile. In my case, I've actually been working a career as an accountant, and I've gotten very, very good at my job. It was never something I dreamed of doing when I was growing up or thinking about my future. I suppose it is somewhat similar to your experiences because I found out rather unexpectedly how much others wanted or even needed me to be an accountant. It's been dominating my career path for a very long time now. But like you, I felt as though I wasn't living up to my dreams. I was putting aside what I really wanted to do for something that was serving a greater purpose. The Brony fandom has given me the opportunity to start expanding upon my talents and become the teacher and even doctor that I've always wanted to be. But if I had put aside my being an accountant all those years ago when I felt the passion begin to drain away from the work, I wouldn't have had the chance to build upon the dreams I've always wanted. I'm still striving away at being an accountant, and I imagine that I'll be keeping that up for many more years to come. Because I've realized that doing what's needed really is the best way to lead into what you really want out of life. But you'll still have to be dedicated to putting aside your own desires for a long time and keep grinding away before you'll be given the opportunity to become more than you are now. I've mentioned in a few of my videos before that people often look for the shortcuts in life because they think that's the only way to get ahead. But for me, that hasn't worked at all. In fact, the opposite has been true. However, whether this applies to you or not has yet to be seen, which is why I would encourage you to find a new reason to restore your drive, your zest for life. Don't give up on your dreams, but also don't give up on doing what's needed to work up to those dreams someday either. Does that make any sense to you, Tommy?
Yeah, for sure. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to come off as ungrateful for the amazing experience I've had for the last 2 years and change. I've learned a lot about myself, met amazing people, and built up a lot of self-confidence. 2012 me would have never believed I was capable of getting to where I am today. I think it's more of a crisis of identity. I'm firmly of the belief that you can't consider yourself something if you don't do that something. There are a lot of people out there who would call themselves filmmakers, for example, but never get past drafting a script, or simply buying the gear. Those people aren't real filmmakers. You're a filmmaker when you make a film, and as soon as you stop, you aren't one anymore. Same thing goes for me. I haven't written anything in months because of all the videos I've been doing, so by my own definition, I can't call myself a writer anymore. I'm not practicing the craft. When people in my comments on YouTube ask, "Who drew your OC?" or react with surprise when they find out I do things other than videos, it just reinforces the fact that who I identify as internally isn't what my creative output projects externally, and it's unnerving to say the least. That being said, I know there are tons of people, heck, essentially everybody, who work a legit job on top of pursuing their dreams. I don't want to sound so childish that I don't think you can't have a job and chip away at a dream too. I will say, though, that it was a lot easier working a 6-hour mindless shift at a grocery store, just turning my brain off and thinking of new ideas, than coming home and writing them down in a flurry of inspiration before passing out, than a creative task you aren't motivated for, than to do another creative task on top of it. It's like, that battery only has so much juice, you know? That's the struggle, I guess. You know, the more I go on, the more contrived this whole issue begins to sound. I should probably just stop being so whiny and just work even harder, huh?
Well, sometimes the answers do come to us when we feel willing to talk about them with someone else. And I would believe that it is far better to do something challenging and stimulating in both your work and your hobby rather than just your hobby, even if it is oftentimes exhausting. We'll never know how far we can go unless we are pushing our limits on a regular basis. Like for me, trying to keep up with a full-time career that constantly works my mind, and then coming home every night and squeezing out some willpower to keep my mind going on writing scripts for new videos. I know it's making a positive difference in my life, and I sincerely hope that it will make a positive difference in your life as well. Shall we continue on this next week?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if I have all the answers yet, but I think I might have some new ideas. Thanks, Doc.
Best of luck to you in your future, Tommy. It's good to be helping.